Greetings everyone, and welcome to hopefully the final part of my King versus Armor King comparison, where I take a deeper look at Armor King. I will hopefully try to squeeze everything I want to say into one video, but if not, I'm going to split into two parts as I do usually. But hopefully not. I'm going to apply the same logic that I did to King, but I'm going to do it in reverse. I'm going to look at the close-up game first, and then I'm going to back away to see what options I have from range. So let's begin. So applying the same logic, the one break is of course the giant swing. Two break, I'm going to use the triple headbutts. Same applies for tombstone. 1+2, first I'm going to be using the DDT. And finally, the instant shining wizard. Now, first of all, of course, you can duck all of these options. And on King, the main tool we use to kind of like damagingly dissuade the opponent from ducking was his forward 3. Forward 3 was completely safe, albeit kind of like -9, -8 on block. And on hit, you got the extension, which is this DDT here. Now on Armor King, your main tool for acquiring something different is, I believe, identical in speed, which is also 15 frames. If I could double check it here quickly. Back 4, back 4, back 4. So hard finding stuff on this list. It is 15, but if I record it here, it's actually punishable. It is -11 on block, but with pushback. Because of this, on Armor King, you're mainly going to be using this from range. It has quite a little bit more range than King's. If you see from here, it actually hits, while King's forward 3 will whiff. So this is more of a ranged option. This is going to tie into what I'm going to talk about later. And on top of all that, of course, sorry. Step. Step. 2 option actually tracks a little bit to Armor King's right, which is King's left in this option, in this case. See? It's much more difficult to step in that direction. But you can still step to your right. 1+2s are linear, again. This is kind of like the thing that takes away from giant swings on both Kings in the form that they do not track. And finally, also for instant shining wizard, I can step to this side, but on the other side it has a little bit more tracking. This is kind of like dependent on how well you input it and so on. So, even these 2 options are still steppable if you have a better sidestep on your character. Now, and of course, the same applies for this back 4. Sorry I didn't record it with a jab. So, this mix-up is steppable. At the very least to this side, but you can still step it to that side if your character has a better sidestep. So, what do we do to stop our opponent from sidestepping? Well, let's start exploring our pokes. Okay, so starting to cover the sidestep, first option that comes to mind is the homing move. Armor King's homing move is safe, as you can see, but it is extremely slow. Because, sorry, King's is quicker. I believe his is kind of like in the 20s, I don't care how, I believe it's 23, so it's definitely not a viable option up close. And again, even on hit, it knocks people way far away. So, one more thing I forgot to mention when I discussed King is that because his is done with a forward 4, simply forward 4, you can kind of like use this while running from range, because all of your other options are extremely steppable. You could run into a forward 4 and snuff people out who are trying to sidestep. So that's a good thing. On Armor King, that is definitely not an option. running into a down forward 1+2 is way slower, and you're going to get sidestep blocked, or even sidestep kind of like counter hit interrupted or whatever. So, looking at the other options, if you remember, as king, I didn't have to go above 14 frames in speed. On king, it used to be down forward 2, which is 13, down forward 1, and down forward 3, which are both 14. So at 14 frames, I had covered all my sidestep options. With Armor King, of course, we're going to look at mid pokes, because you're not going to dissuade people a lot with highs. And either way, I don't believe he has any kind of like notable tracking on his highs aside from this, and it's kind of like slow, whatever. So starting off, we have down forward 4. This is actually 12 frames. So if you see here, if I try to interrupt it with my back 1 as king, because I started with a jab and he's +1, Armor King that is, he interrupts me. So he has a 12 frame mid, which is fantastic. It does have a little bit of pushback on hit, but of course, since we're discussing sidestepping, you can step it both options, both ways. So this is no good. Even though it's a 12 frame mid, you're not going to dissuade people from sidestepping you. Down forward 1, this is a 13 frame mid, which is -1 on block. By the way, down forward 4, if I check it here quickly, is -4 on block. Down forward 1 is -1 on block, so it has the same speed as King's down forward 2, which is 13, but the same block frames as his down forward 1, which is 14 frames. So this looks very good, very promising. But I can step it to my right, which is Armor King's left. Now, to this side, it has a little bit of tracking, just like King's down forward 1, but I can still step it. Even King can step Armor King's down forward 1 to the side it's intended to track to, which is his right. There are characters who can do this. During my testing with Kazumi, she was unable to step this to the left at all. But even King, who's not the best sidestepper, can step this to the direction it's supposed to track to. So that's no good. So down forward 1, it has a little bit of tracking to Armor King's right, which is King's left in this case, but it can still be stepped. So far, I'm not covering my sides at all. Stepping, including just for the sake of it, another 13 frame mid, which is the shoulder here. Problem is, of course, first of all, not only is it extremely steppable, and you can get his back, it is also very punishable. So this is no good. And at 14, we get... Sorry. Down back 2. This mid here. Now this can still be stepped to that side, but it has a little bit of tracking to my left, which is Armor King's right, even though even there you can step it. Furthermore, on its own, it's punishable. And you have to rely on the extension, which is this high, to keep it safe. So far, I have reached all the options, or exhausted all my options, up until 14 frames of speed, and I still cannot cover my sides. Well, let's see what we can do about that. So 2 tools I want to get out of the way, or like 3 tools, like I said. Moves that are not really good for poking, that sometimes people kind of like think they're good for poking. The first I talked about is down back 2. This is a 14 frame mid. It has a little bit of reach. It can, like I said, it can have some range, but on its own it's punishable. And you have to rely on the high extension to keep it safe. And that can, of course, be ducked. Of course, this is all theoretical. I know that very few people are going to have like the reflexes to respond to all this stuff, but you still have to discuss things at least on paper. So down back 2 is no good. Another thing people mention is down forward 3, which is this. It is a counter hit launcher, but it is, I believe, 17 frames in speed. If I could find here, yes, it is 17 frames in speed, and even then, it is extremely linear. So this is no good. Another thing people mention is down forward 2. Now down forward 2 is not very fast, it is 15. It is a counter hit launcher, and you can pick up with that. The problem is, first of all, if I check the tracking, it does track to, this side. Not that much. It does track to the right, even though there are characters who can still step it here. So it has a little bit of tracking. Problem is, it is punishable. And in this case, you also have to rely on kind of the high extension it has to keep it kind of like safe, even though you're still extremely negative there, but you're at minus 12 guard frames if the sight is correct. Even then, of course, the second hit is a high and it can be ducked. So down forward 2 is no good. So for generic just poking, if you're just trying to dissuade your opponent from kind of like retaliating, the first option is going to be down forward 4, which, like I said, is a 12 frame mid. If I try to interrupt with back 1, it counter hits me because he's at +1. And the second is, of course, down forward 1, which is 13 frames but -1 on block. So this has the best frames on block. But keep in mind, like I said, that even down forward 1, even King can step it in both directions. And the same applies to down forward 4. Okay, so just to save time, the two real options that are going to cover your sides for your right side as Armor King, so again sidestep left, the option is down 2. If I try to step it, I can't. And I believe I'm going to test this again with Lily, and I'm going to show you that it's kind of like the exact same thing. Problem is, down 2 is 17 frames in speed. It has good frames on block at -2, but it's 17 frames in speed. And of course, it doesn't have any tracking to the other side. But it's 17 frames. I can counter hit easily here. Here's 13 frames, he's 14 frames, and here's even a hop kick. So this is a very bad option in terms of start-off frames, even though the tracking is good. And from here, because you're in crouch, you kind of like have a lot of options, sort of, but it's 17 frames. The other option is 4-3. And this, while it doesn't track to that side, it tracks very reliably to the other side. The frames on block are -3, on hit is +4, but it is 16 frames in startup. So again, because it's done from a jab, you kind of like trade with a hop kick, but aside from that, 14 frames interrupt you. So these are your real true options for covering sidestep, down 2 and forward 3. Of course, forward 3 has another extension, forward 3-4, but it becomes -7 on block and less advantageous on hit. You did get a new cancel off of the string, but that's not really relevant. So how do things change against a fantastic sidestepper like Lily? If you remember, the only complication she presented for King was kind of like forcing a kind of like pseudo mix-up between down forward 1 and down forward 2. But you could still cover her sidestepping options just fine. And in practicality, it really didn't present any much of a problem. Well, for Armor King, first of all, the kind of like tracking on the 2 option throw, she has enough of a sidestep to completely nullify that. So that's no good. And while forward 3 still works just fine, the same as it did on King in the case of his down forward 3, she can still not step in that direction at all. The tracking on down 2 is not enough to stop her from sidestepping it. So this is no good. Down 2 has failed to stop her from sidestepping left. If we check our other options, this, which again I remind you is punishable, it does have a little bit of tracking. She can't like step it with one single tap, but she can still sidewalk it. And the exact same applies to down forward too, in its non-punishable form with the high extension. She can still step it. You can't stop using your conventional tools. You can't stop Lily from sidewalking you to her left at all. And, well, let's see what other unconventional options we have. So during JDCR's breakdown of Armor King, I remember him talking about a technique that is to stop, he said like to stop your opponent from stepping, he does forward and then down forward one. Now I believe this is the option that I recorded. Yes. Now, while this does add a little bit to the tracking when she's trying to sidestep you to her right, a little bit, I don't see that this is doing that much. It does add a little bit to the tracking, but that's not the problematic side. The problematic side is this one, and as you can see, it has nothing to do with the tracking to that side. So this is kind of like more for the other characters, maybe. Another option is forward down 2, and this doesn't help. I also tried forward down forward 4. If she delays the sidestep, she can step it. And kind of like the only option that I found is forward down forward 2. Especially if you do it kind of like with the extension. Sorry. She can still sidestep block. Sadly, there isn't that much you can do to dissuade characters like Lily from sidewalking you left all day. And the only kind of like trump card, short of resorting to this, which again, like I said, is extremely slow and can be interrupted by pretty much almost anything, is doing this, which is relying on forward 4-3. There, you can kind of like really start dissuading people from stepping. Forward 4-3 is, I believe, 17 frames. I'm going to start talking about when I discuss further ranges. But it's a high. So, bottom line is, your mix-up as Armor King for stopping people from stepping you up close is very dependent on the quality of the sidestep the character you're facing has. If you're facing someone like Lily who really knows that you're weak to this side and she's going to start stepping you all day, the only real option you can have is, like I said, is doing forward 4-3 at point blank range, which again can be ducked. So your life up close is not as easy as King's at all. Even against characters who are not super steppers, you still have to rely on options that are slower in speed to stop them from stepping you. And once you're facing a fantastic stepper, you really have to resort to a trump card homing move, which in this case is a high because this is very slow. And generally your life up close, like I said, is much harder. So how do I feel about that? I don't really like the fact that she can kind of like option select with her sidestep left. I believe at the very least down forward 2, being punishable and being slow at 15 and having to rely on a high extension to keep it safe, at least that should have kind of like a complete 90 degrees tracking to his right. But it is what it is. However, backing a little bit away, you'd find that from this range, Armor King's options are a clear contrast to that which King had. If you remember, King's entire game plan, in my opinion, from this range was kind of like to get in with his forward 1. And Armor King has a lot more attractive options from this range. First of all, your crouch dash throws come out quicker. Like I said, if you remember, in the case of King, he had like a slight pause before he stuck his arms out. In the case of Armor King, these come out instantaneously. It is a little bit more difficult to mask in a 1+2 break in the form of, for example, Armor King Driver. But like I said, his chain throws come out quicker. You can access these also from Shadow Step, which is also nice. And generally, like I said, from range you have this, which is plus on block. It is a high, it's a launcher, but it's plus on block. It is kind of like difficult to step actually, but that's even beside the point. This, of course, fantastic combos, but it is kind of like pseudo punishable, but it is punishable at, I believe, -10. You have, of course, your Shining Wizard, and again, this is, I believe, the correct time for me to comment that notice that the range it leaves you at is Dark Upper range almost, and you don't really want to be close. I believe I have showed that your game up close is not that strong. Once you find yourself close enough, you're kind of like you surprise your opponent. He doesn't really have time to think, and before they can start like stepping or doing something, you immediately enact one of your throws and try to catch them in one. But from range, you're far more dangerous. Forgetting Capital, which King has, forgetting even these, you have this knee, which is safe even though it's -9. This kind of like launches on Forgotten Realm because you can do the stomps to break the floor. Your throws come out quicker. You are much stronger out of your crouch dash. You have access to a wave dash and you can do stuff like, for example, crouch dash in Shining Wizard, which King can also do, admittedly. Don't rely on this because I'm going to show that this is punishable, and forward, 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 which is his wall bounce, is also punishable. So these are not your good options. But you still have a lot of dangerous highs. This is a plus on block high. This is a punishable but a very damaging launching high. You have this, which is quicker than King's forward, forward 1. This is only, I believe, 17 frames in speed. And it's a normal hit launcher. As you can see, everything Armor King does almost leaves him back at this range. This is the range he wants to be at. He doesn't want to be up close really that much. So you have a lot of highs, all of which are dangerous, all of which are launching. You can mix that up, of course, with your throws, and to stop people from ducking all of that, you can use your slash kick. You can use this knee. You can use this, for example. You can use that, which is also kind of like awkward to punish, and you can use your capital. So in my mind, Armor King is much more equipped, and all of it, even his back four. Look at the range on it. This is all meant, and from this range, I don't believe. Maybe Jack or Gigas can kind of like punish it, but they can't step you up close all that well. So Armor King is much better built for ranged combat than King is. King from this range, he's not doing this to you. He's not doing that to you. He's not doing this to you. King from this range is all about trying to get in order to start enacting his poking versus throw game. Armor King can kind of like really live out here. This is why I'm not surprised, and I'm not really finding it to be worse that his Shining Wizard leaves him at this range. This is the range he wants to be at. He wants to whiff punish you. He wants to bait you into something. He doesn't want to be here where you could sidestep his pokes all day. He wants to be further away. From this range, your options as Armor King are way better than King's. Your mids are kind of like weaker, yeah, but your highs are way stronger. You can cover your sidestep options much more reliably. You can kind of like mix people up because this is 0 on block. You can do this into immediate shadow step. You have a lot of options from this range. So there you have it. This is my interpretation of the two Kings in terms of difference. Armor King is way less equipped to be up close, and he's much more thriving, much more dangerous from far away. He has a lot of dangerous, like I said, launchers, plus on block. He can stay kind of like pseudo safe from this range. He can mix his options up, and even though his kind of like options are not as well intuitive as King's, he can still he can still do everything from this range much more effectively than King can. Whereas King, in contrast, when he's further away, all he's trying to do is to get in order to start poking and start throwing. Armor King is more of like, let's say, a surprise thrower. Once you find yourself in your opponent's face, you quickly kind of like poke into something and then immediately throw. That being said, I feel that this series has kind of like dragged on long enough. Maybe not everybody, well, most of people won't have the kind of like patience to sit through all of it. So I might do a final episode as kind of like a recap and to like condense the difference into, let's say, a 15-minute video, which is going to be kind of like the abstract of everything that I talked about. And in case you want to kind of like take a look at the deeper or in-depth analysis, you can go back to kind of like check the videos themselves. So, having said that, I believe this is going to draw this series to a close. And thank you all for watching, and I see you all next time.